CW39.
Houston.
This is Veterans Voices, where we honor our military veterans. I'm Sharon Melton. In our next half hour, we'll share stories that showcase the contributions of those who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces. We begin with retired Sergeant Marty Gonzalez of Cypress, Texas. He fought in the Iraq War and saved the lives of fellow Marines overseas and others struggling at home with PTSD. He even received numerous medals for his service. But for his wife, Tawny Gonzalez, and their children, Marty's more than just a hero. He is a husband, a father, and someone who always put others first.
A lot of people knew Marty, and a lot of them, they knew he was a Marine, but they had no idea the magnitude of his service or the medals he received or what he endured over there.
With a calm and steady voice, Tawny Gonzalez talks about the love of her life, her rock, Marty.
He never wanted recognition for anything he did. So he didn't like being called a hero, or he was very humble about it.
Born on February 11, 1980, Marty Joseph Gonzalez may not have realized at an early age what an impact he would make on the lives of so many. At the age of 18, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. In 2004, he would later be deployed to Fallujah, Iraq, and fight in one of the most deadliest time periods of the Iraq War.
What he endured over there, they were in firefights every day.
In just 30 days, Sergeant Gonzalez was injured by an insurgent grenade while he saved another Marine. His bravery led him to be honored with 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, and 2 Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medals. Marty later met Tawny in 2011 when she was volunteering at a retreat for combat veterans. 1 year later, they were married.
So when I met him, he had already done his tours, but he was still living with the aftermath of war. And to me, he was my husband, and he was the father of my children, and all I can think about is the man he was. If you looked at Marty, you wouldn't know something was wrong with him because a lot of his scars were covered. But he had been paralyzed for 2 years, and also he had PTSD and survivor's guilt, and you can't see those things if you just look at him on the surface.
And he didn't suffer just for 1 year. He suffered for, what, 16 years or so?
He suffered for, yes, 16 years. He would put on a brave face around everyone. He was open and vulnerable with that to me so that I could better love him and help him, and our children too, help them better understand what their father was going through. A lot of times you can't fix it. They just need someone to talk to so they can process it.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Marty Gonzalez, United States Marine Corps. It really touched me to go and have an opportunity to defend my country and fight. And when you're a Marine, you're taught to protect your brothers. I wanted my opportunity.
And he did that, and so much more. By sharing his struggles with others with PTSD and giving them hope, he began speaking and sharing his own pain and stories. And his body went through even more setbacks and debilitating pain. As time went by, he would still do what he could to always be present in the lives of his wife and children, as is evident when he would sing songs to his kids.
I will always love and read to you. Yeah.
The father he was, our kids, he was their favorite person, and they loved him so much. They still love him, and he taught me what true integrity was, and perseverance, and true love, and compassion, and empathy. I learned so much from him because that's what made him the amazing Marine he was, and the amazing father, and the amazing husband, and friend, and son, and all of that. It was his soul, his heart, his essence, everything about him.
And when Marty passed away on November 28, 2020 from a pulmonary embolism at the young age of 40, his message of love is still never far away, and his family's love for him continues to shine. If you had a chance, just one more time, to tell him anything, what would you tell him?
It's a hard one. I would tell him thank you. I would tell him thank you for loving us all so unconditionally. And he loved us so fiercely. It's almost like he knew he only had so much time with us. And so he always made sure you never questioned his love.
And I have to say, it truly was an honor to sit down with Tani Gonzalez. She also told me that last month, Marine Corps Lee Outpost was named after Marine Sergeant retired Marty Gonzalez, right here in the Houston area. Well, a Houston area veteran who served over 2 decades highlights the importance of being in the military, and he believes that just like first responders, the military is a vital part of our community. Sydney Simone has more on his story.
Kevin Troller, a veteran of 26 years, says it was a split-second decision he made in college to join the military.
I loved it. I found who I was, the discipline, the regimentation, even the physical and mental nature of the Corps I really, really liked.
That moment changed the outlook of his life forever.
A Corps member that was a senior, and they're dressed up all in their uniform and their high boots and everything, came up to me explaining the school. And at the end of the explanation, he said, if you don't join the Corps, you won't understand the school.
Troller says outside of Veterans Day and Memorial Day, 2 days a year dedicated to celebrating the ones who fight for our country, veterans are typically overlooked. But he says that's progressively getting better.
I go to many venues now that seem to go out of the way to ask veterans, either currently serving or vets, to stand up and be recognized. That didn't happen a long time ago.
Troller was actively serving and working across from the Pentagon on the day of the 9/11 attacks. He says experiences from that tragic day, along with transferable skills and values he picked up in the military, still impact his life today as a leader.
I fought and soldiers fought, so you have that right to express yourself that way. I don't have to like how you express yourself, but you have the freedom to express yourself because of the military. I think that's something that people should resonate with most people.
Although the military helped Troller get through school, overcome life obstacles, and build strong relationships around him, he says serving is not for everyone, but everyone should consider it. If it's not for you, find a way to contribute in your own way.
The fact that we as a country can't do what we do and protect our freedoms and way of life without the military, I will encourage people all the time to join the military.
Although he now works as the assistant city manager for Baytown, Texas, Troller says,
I will always consider myself a soldier.
And that was Sydney Simone reporting. Now, aside from working in Baytown, Kevin Troller speaks at different engagements throughout the community and works closely with the military in this area to continue making a difference. Well, still ahead on Veterans Voices, a former Navy frogman reflects on his time in the military and how a fellow sailor saved his life. Plus, a retired Navy SEAL is now involved in a different kind of battle, how he's helped American allies out of harm's way.
It's the Rooms to Go Kids holiday sale. Save big on this super cool twin-over-twin bunk bed with built-in storage. Just $12.77 or $22 a month interest-free. In your choice of 2 great finishes during the Rooms to Go Kids holiday sale.
Attention Americans 55 or older. Did you or someone you love work with asbestos before 1982? If so, you may pre-qualify today for cash compensation with no out-of-pocket cost. This is not a lawsuit against the company you worked for. Thousands have been paid already, but time is limited. Call 855-579-5299. That's 855-579-5299.
'Tis the season at Burlington to look great, celebrate, get out, get together, get it together, and get it all for a lot less. You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington.
Here's to the hottest styles, amazing prices, and just having fun. Here's to the Rooms to Go holiday sale. And knowing if you need amazing furniture at an incredible price, it's all in one place, ready for fast delivery, online or in store. There's never been a better time to see what's possible. It's the Rooms to Go holiday sale, celebrating great style and savings.
Well, the weather is quiet for now, but we've got another week coming up with another cold front on the way. We'll have that latest forecast for you Monday morning on No Wait Weather and Traffic starting at 5:30.
No Wait Weather and Traffic, Monday, 5:30 to 9:30 on CW 39 Houston.
It's the Rooms to Go holiday sale. Shop and save on a great selection of living rooms, like this stylish set or this classic set. Each just $9.99 or $17 a month interest-free. Right now during the Rooms to Go holiday sale.
Welcome back, everyone. As we honor our nation's veterans, we take you back to the segregation era when a young man named Eddie Ferguson couldn't sit at a lunch counter in the South. But it was in the state of Virginia where he learned what it really means to rely on your swim buddy. Regina Mobley reports.
At 77 years old, former Navy frogman Eddie Ferguson is still a daredevil. If he's not riding around Virginia Beach on two mean wheels, he's riding on one.
I did not want to join the Army, Marines, or the Air Force.
His trip started in 1961 when a 17-year-old from Fort Myers, Florida, decided to join the Navy. On board the USS Okinawa, he met a recruiter for the underwater demolition team and the newly minted SEAL team. He barely passed the screening test.
When the time was said, it was 7 minutes and 29 seconds that I finished.
In basic underwater demolition SEAL training, he nearly drowned twice. Once penned with the Trident in 1965, he had to make a decision.
I chose to go to UDT rather than SEAL team. SEAL teams are the ones that went to Vietnam.
Ferguson won't talk about missions, but he will talk about a swim buddy who saved his life.
I got a little bit behind the power curve in my breathing, and there was no way I was getting enough oxygen.
Chief Eddie Ferguson retired from the Navy in 1982 at E7. His son is producing a documentary titled 33 Black Frog, the life story of Chief Petty Officer Eddie Ferguson. For Veterans Voices, I'm Regina Mobley.
Well, a retired Navy SEAL living in Chesapeake, Virginia, continues to protect the lives of Americans and our allies in harm's way. Chris Horn shares us how Jason Redman is really making a difference years after he left active duty.
She could have been killed. Instead, she was saved. Thanks to veterans like Lieutenant Jason Redman, U.S. Navy retired. He was a member of the fabled SEAL Team 6 and was badly wounded in a firefight in Iraq. Before that, he was deployed to Afghanistan. Redman and hundreds of other special operators have used their knowledge, connections, and technology to get people out of Afghanistan. By the American deadline, just before Labor Day, Operation Pineapple, as it was known, had helped to spirit about 1,000 Americans, interpreters, and allies away from Taliban oppression.
Frequently, we would get them to the gate, and the Taliban would disperse them, firing over their heads, beating them. Beating people, beating kids.
Redman recalls one case where a father had been captured by the Taliban, and his pregnant wife went into premature labor.
A lot of bleeding, and the individuals there did not know how to stop the bleeding. And one of the medics in the network actually got on the line with one of our interpreters and basically told the people what to do, walked them through how to stop this bleeding and save this baby.
With Operation Pineapple, the mission that Redman sees as lifelong continues.
We don't leave our citizens behind. We don't leave the people that helped us behind.
Among many medals, Redman was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor, the Purple Heart, and the Meritorious Service Medal. For Veterans Voices, I'm Chris Horn.
Well, Redman also appeared on an episode of Hawaii Five-0 as a wounded veteran. The producers told him they wanted to make the role as authentic as possible. Well, coming up, an Army veteran has found a creative and patriotic way to honor fallen military members. And a paralyzed Army Ranger now has 2 missions, helping other disabled individuals and honoring fallen soldiers. How he's using dog tags to memorialize the lives lost.
Heroes, are you ready?
Yeah! Let's rock!
Go! Woo!
We're not here to mess around. We came to run Olmec's temple.
This is so intense, I can't stand it!
coming for you.
Legends of the Hidden Temple. New episode tonight at 8/7 Central, only on the CW.
When your family gathers around a Shack-a-Roni from Papa John's, you're sharing more than extra cheese and pepperoni. You're sharing scholarships, meals, and laughter. Because $1 from every Shack-a-Roni goes to charity. That's pizza with a purpose.
After everything that happened, I can't leave him here.
You're scared that Crenshaw or your family or your friends are gonna fall apart without you. You don't always have to be the hero, Spencer.
You were gonna leave LA sooner or later. You sure you ready for this?
Something about the dream scares me. At some point, I gotta take the leap and find out, right?
Every doctor I've seen says it's too dangerous to keep playing. I gotta figure out what's next.
I know you wanted to get back in the studio, but right now we're just wasting my time.
Working through getting shot ain't easy.
Listen, I gotta tell you something.
Senior year wasn't supposed to go like this. They say the pain is always hardest for the ones left standing. They ain't wrong. Maybe people like us weren't supposed to have it all.
All American. New episode this Monday at 8/7 Central, only on the CW.
When your family gathers around a Shack-a-Roni from Papa John's, you're sharing more than extra cheese and pepperoni. You're sharing scholarships, meals, and laughter. Because $1 from every Shack-a-Roni goes to charity. That's pizza with a purpose.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. Did you know there are about 19 million veterans here in the U.S.? And many of them are looking for a way to continue serving our country long after their time in the military is over. A Colorado man has found a way with some spray paint and wood. Jeremy Hubbard has his story.
You'd never know it from the wood shop and the sawdust.
I've been doing this for about 4 years now, 5 years.
But Zach Smith was supposed to be a firefighter, like his dad and his dad's dad. But it seems a saw and a passion got in the way.
And then God had other plans.
Smith is an Army veteran who discovered a new skill by accident.
Everything is trial and error.
And along the way discovered how to continue serving his community and his country through art. His studio is his garage, where he's designed thousands of these unique and patriotic paintings.
So far today, there's roughly 8,000 pieces out there.
The gift of this colorful art might be most cherished by families who are in their darkest hour.
It's humbling to me that I have a way that I can personally give back.
When a local sheriff's deputy was killed in the line of duty 3 years ago, Zach made a flag and sent it to his loved ones. After that, he decided to do it again, each and every time a military member or first responder here in his home state dies in the line of duty. And sadly, the work has kept him busy.
Just a couple years ago, I remember building 3 in a month.
So far, he's honored more than 20 families of the fallen with a keepsake that honors their hero in a way nothing else can.
These people are all public servants, you know, and this is an important part of being an American, is serving your country.
Sure, maybe his Army days are over.
I never wanted to be a woodworker. I never wanted to be a painter.
But Zach Smith has blazed a new trail with a new passion.
It just worked out that way.
To serve those families who serve us all.
You know, you just have to follow your heart and do what makes you happy.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Well, Zach's service doesn't end with his artwork either. He recently organized a group of more than 100 volunteers to help a Vietnam-era veteran clean up his property after a wildfire burned down his home. Well, a paralyzed Army Ranger calls his injury a blessing by misfortune. Now he's helping other disabled individuals find mobility again and honoring fallen soldiers in a very unique way. Carrie O'Brien reports.
It's got, you know, special gloves on it.
Whether it's through his nonprofit, Reach Cycles, that provides adaptable bikes to disabled children and veterans. Good job! Or with his Dog Tag Memorial, honoring the more than 7,000 troops lost in the global war on terror.
Every single one of these tags has a story of heroism behind it.
Retired Army Ranger James Howard is giving back to his community and never forgetting the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice.
I call my injury a blessing by misfortune.
Howard was wounded serving in Iraq and ultimately left paralyzed in a diving accident. His injury has never stopped him. He founded Veterans and Athletes United. They built this traveling memorial.
It's 28 feet wide by 6 feet tall.
Recently on display in New York City for the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
It's been to 50 plus locations.
Howard says he gets so many requests for this traveling memorial, not just here on the East Coast, but across the country, that he would really like to have a duplicate made that could be stationed in the West.
We get requests from Phoenix, San Diego, San Francisco, all over out west.
For Veterans Voices, I'm Carrie O'Brien.
And coming up, one man is working to uncover every U.S. military award recipient, how he spent the last 2 decades to make this possible.
I was driving to work. Suddenly there was this.
And now 16 years have passed.
What year is it?
It's 2021.
Thousands of people just showed up.
People must be looking for me.
Something strange is going on.
We're trying to get to the truth.
Well, the truth is I just want to go home. My daughter is only 4 months old.
Mom?
Do you really think that you can just walk out on your family?
It's not what happened. I was taken or something. I don't know.
You're not alone. We are all in this together.
Know your power and own your gift. I'll bring my destiny to life.
I think I might just like 2021.
4400. New series this Monday at 9/8 Central, only on the CW.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. Now, if you search your name on the internet, you might uncover something unexpected. It happened to an Army veteran just a while ago, and the discovery was life-changing. It's all thanks to an online researcher who's made it his mission in life to honor heroes. Jeremy Hubbard reports.
Army veteran Mark DeVille decided to Google himself at the urging of a coworker a few years back. He found a huge surprise.
And it came up a recipient of the Silver Star, and I said, well, that's not me. And he said, no, go ahead and read it. And so I read it, and I'm like, wow, that is me.
Turns out he had earned one of the highest honors for valor in combat and never even knew it.
That's why I do it. That's exactly why I do it.
Might never have known it if not for this man.
It feels very good.
Who's made it his life's work to make sure heroes get the recognition they deserve. Doug Sterner spends as much as 16 hours a day compiling a massive database on a website called Home of Heroes. He's documented some 275,000 recipients of the nation's highest military honors.
Silver Stars.
For more than 2 decades, he's combed through thousands of files, folders, and documents, tracking down what he calls forgotten valor.
No idea. No idea.
And that research has changed Mark DeVille's life.
It was describing our firefight in 1984.
Turns out he was involved in a 45-minute shootout at the DMZ 37 years ago as a Russian man attempted to defect across the border.
He crossed the line and he was chased by North Koreans.
DeVille and his unit saved that defector's life, an act of bravery that earned him the 3rd highest award for valor, which he only discovered when that Google search led him to Doug Sterner's website.
It is pretty cool.
Forgotten valor? Forgotten no more, thanks to this veteran who promises to remember. For Veterans Voices, I'm Jeremy Hubbard.
Well, Sterner also estimates that there are still 150,000 names that still need to be added to his database. Remarkable. Coming up, find out how one man's passion for music played a part in how he served his country.
It's the Rooms to Go holiday sale. Right now, get this versatile 5-piece bedroom set, just $8.55 or $15 a month interest-free. With complete queen bed, dresser, and mirror in your choice of 3 finishes during the Rooms to Go holiday sale.
I want my dollars to go further, and my Christmas list did not get any smaller. I discovered this amazing place called Burlington. They have great deals on gifts everyone will love. Burlington, you saved me a fortune, and you saved my Christmas. You love the deals, you love Burlington.
At 9 o'clock, there's only one name that matters. ABC 13 Eyewitness News.
Every night at 9 on CW 39.
Bringing you the best news at the best time.
ABC 13 Eyewitness News at 9 on CW 39 every night.